Hi viewers, today we are going to interview Dr. Ganesh Devaraj, founder and CEO of Soliton Technologies. Soliton is technology-based company focusing on R&D services. It's entering in 15th year of entrepreneurial journey in 2013. At present, Soliton has approximately 125 employees and their services include test and measurement automation, design of custom cameras, complete embedded product development. Soliton is a group of individuals who share a strong belief in the values of integrity and excellence. Some of its prestigious customers are General Electric, IBM, Boeing, Robert Bosch, Volvo and Texas Instruments. In these 15 years of span, Soliton has won 23 awards so far at the NI Week Best Application Contest. And the amazing part is, Soliton has set a record by winning the NI Week Global Contest 3 times in 5 years. Now we will look at Soliton Technologies in the eyes of Dr. Ganesh Devaraj.
So Ganesh, what were the uncertainties you had when you started Soliton?
I really didn't feel any uncertainty, while I was getting the company off the ground. We did have trouble finding business in the beginning, but it never got to a stage where I felt concerned about the ability to continue running the company. Had enough capital support to keep it going for at least 7 months, I think. After the first project, another 4 months without projects, and then we then started getting projects, and we were able to go from there.
During Soliton's initial stage, what kind of people do you want to work with, and also how can you find them?
The answer to this actually really comes from the book I mentioned, Built to Last. So one of the key things they said in that book is, he said the company is only as good as the quality of its people, and it's really it really made a lot of sense to me when I said, if I want to build a company like a HP or a Sony, I need to go to India and find the very best people that I can find. So at that point, I felt Indian Institute of Science master's program I thought would probably be the best to go and recruit from. This was a few months before I started the company. I came to India to drop off my family. So I think it was in October. I came to IISc and I recruited from there. And I recruited 2 people and had one more on standby. And then I went back to US, finished my work with my company in Michigan, and then came back end of December, and I was waiting for them to join me. They both wrote very identical mails saying, due to unavoidable circumstances, I cannot join you. Right? And it was a very big shock to me because I had not heard anything until that point, and I fully assumed that they would be joining as per the commitment at the beginning of January. And then I scrambled to find another person. I went back to IISc because I had one more person in that list. At that time, I didn't want to hire more than 2. So he was still doing his master's thesis, and he was only graduating in February. I found him. I convinced him to join Soliton, and then I went to CIT college. Again, I went to the master's program. I talked to a lot of faculty there, and one of the faculty took a lot of interest in the work that we were doing. So he recommended one of his top students to Soliton. I found one more person on a contract. To my surprise, he and the master's student from CIT were far outperforming the student from IISc, the graduate from IISc rather. And it took me only a little while, probably 2-3 weeks, to understand what was going on. For these 2 people, their entire focus was on learning, and they were putting their heart and soul into doing their best possible work. Whereas the guy from IISc, he had come there and he was looking at the setup with only 2-3 people. Of course he knew that he was joining a startup, but I think he still had in his mind a lot of worries. Is this the right company for me? All these distractions really caused him to not be able to focus on his work as much, and I really found that his performance was lagging a lot. And from that point onwards, I realized that I should be looking more for this passion in the person, setting a high bar on caliber, of course, But more importantly, after that, somebody crosses that bar, I was looking for that passion in them and the attitude that they carry to work, and that is, I feel, really served Soliton well over the many years.
Ganesh, one question. So your idea of an ideal employee changed over a period of time. So did it actually change once, or did it change for a number of times?
Interestingly, it changed only once, Sriram. I felt, that one experience really, told me much. But of course, the other thing that I feel I've added on, to the skill set that I've been looking for more recent years is communication skills. What I've realized is that, after the first year or two, communication skills become really important. I would say all the way from the start, but definitely as they go higher up and they have to start interacting with customers, they have to start interacting with other team members. Their ability to communicate really, I found out that it's very crucial. So I would say I added that as a criteria, maybe about 3-4 years after I started. So this first lesson came to me, within the first 2 months, and then I would say the second criteria, I would say, I added about 3-4 years later.
So Ganesh, you told it took around 7-8 months to get your first project. So can you tell more about your first project, how easy it was to convince your first customer, and how it was when you had to get your first customer outside your contacts?
Good question, Sriram. In fact, my very first customer was my employer from Michigan, my past employer, right? So when I came back from the US, I convinced them to send a project to us. The project itself was a good success. We got very good feedback from the customer. That was Chrysler Corporation in Michigan. It was done through my past employer, but we handled the project entirely. And installation also I went to the US to do it. But soon after that project, Detroit actually has this very cyclical, business periods. It'll be high and then sometimes it'll be very low. And by the time we finished the project, the timing was such that it went into a big low. So there was almost for another full year there were no projects from my past employer, VA Engineering. So that's the time I had to start looking for projects in India. So I was able to go with credibility, but the big challenge was they were all not using automation at that point. And so for them to start spending money on this kind of automation was very new. The first project I would say that after that, the one from VA Engineering, came from Pricol in Coimbatore. It's a large automotive component manufacturer. They make dashboard instruments. They had imported a machine from Japan, and that machine was an automation system to automate the speedometer calibration. They didn't show me the machine. They just gave me the requirements and said, can you meet the same requirement for automation? Can you give us a proposal? So I actually gave them a proposal. That customer, who gave us the project, they gave it to us because they thought, okay, here is something that's not working, what we just imported. Let's see if these guys can build us something. And they gave us a lot of requirements, and it was very interesting. We were able to show a proof of concept in just 1 month, and that really impressed them very greatly because they never imagined that we could build that much of capability in 1 month. So that was our very first project, and then from there onwards, that customer became a regular customer for us. They kept giving us continuous projects. We always had business with them after that.
Ganesh, subsequently, did you develop any strategy for approaching the customers outside your contacts?
Outside the contacts, the main success we had was again through National Instruments. So we were actually a partner to them, right, a system integrator. So using that, we were able to approach companies like GE Medical, Exide, totally unknown companies in my network. But through National Instruments, I was able to get introduced to all of them, and we got projects from those companies at that time.
Ganesh, as an employer, what do you think that your employees expect from you?
Yeah, I really feel it's a very good question and something that all employers, entrepreneurs should be reflecting a lot about. And I would say that the first things that come to my mind is I always place myself in the shoes of an employer in Soliton, and I look at what would I want, right? And I typically use that as my guidepost on decision making. High level of transparency, which I feel I would like if I were an employee. I always try to maintain as an employer, right? So that integrity and transparency is one. The second aspect that I feel that is, I would say, it has been on my mind more in the recent years is that what an employee really wants is also the confidence that the leader of the company, is going to take them to a better future, right? That is, they're able to show the right leadership, the right decision making, to ensure that we are going to go to a better future, right? To set that vision and be able to actually go there and reach that place. Even though I don't have external investors, I feel I feel about employees in a similar manner, that I'm answerable to them, that I am taking them to a better future. So I think that to be able to show that leadership, the right decision making, so that we are all moving into a better future is the other thing that I feel employees are looking for. And of course, I think the third aspect I would say is fairness. Every employee wants to make sure that they are treated fairly, is treated with respect, and I think these are like the what I would call basic elements.
Ganesh, have you encountered some situation that you lose very esteemed customers from your company, and how did you handle this kind of situation?
Yeah. So this was actually the year 2004, 2003, 2004, when we were about 6, 7 years old as a company. At that time, our largest customer was GE Medical Systems. They give you a lot of volume, but they negotiate very hard. So this particular case, what happened is that that purchase officer kept negotiating with us to keep pushing our rates down year after year. So we made one time we made a reduction. The second time when he asked for it, we said it's not possible. In fact, we want an increase because costs are going up. But he insisted that there are other companies willing to take over that business from us if we do not reduce. We did not have any option at that point. We felt we had to reduce that year. So we reduced the business, the prices one more time, and then by the end of the year, we realized we were not making any money from GE Medical, and that time we made the decision that we would actually exit that customer. So almost a company giving us 60% of our business, we exited that one time. In fact, to this date, we have never had a customer walk out on us saying that we have not done well. In hindsight, I felt I should have done this a little differently. I should have probably, we took this internal decision with just people in the company, but I feel we should have had some senior experienced mentors who could have advised us on what to do in this situation. I feel the right thing to do would have been to go and ask for higher rates, and even though we would have maybe gotten only a fraction of that business, rather than walk out, we should have just said that give us this higher rate or we will not take that business, and that would have been the right way to handle it rather than completely exiting that customer. So this was something that I felt I learned later.
Ganesh, I think this is going to be the final question. Can you share us 3 phases during your journey which you found was the hardest?
Okay. So I think the maybe the number one hardest one was when I lost one of my partners. I think in the year 2000, I was looking for somebody else to join me because I was finding that I was becoming the bottleneck for the growth of the company. There was more business than opportunities, and I really wanted to get a very experienced partner to join me. And at that time, one of my seniors from college, he is 1 year senior to me. He had already been in business for a few years, but not in technology. He actually joined me at that time. And so we actually started off with some expectations with regard to how we will share the ownership of the company. And after through 3-4 years, what happened is I felt like we were not pulling equally, in terms of taking responsibility and ownership for the amount of activity in the company, we were not pulling equally. So I felt, to give 50% of the company to him would not be correct. Very soon, within a year, we decided that we will actually part ways rather than, because we were not able to come to an agreement on this matter. So when he left, I actually, it affected me very, very much because not only was he leaving, we also had some, dispute to settle with regard to, the value of the shares that I would be buying back from him. Just to give you a closure on that story, we decided to use an arbitrator to actually, come to an agreement on the share value, and then I bought all those shares from him at that value eventually, taking a loan and all of that stuff. It took me almost a year or 2 years after that to really kind of get back to that mode that I was in the beginning when I started. And I feel, I think different people handle it differently. For me, it took a lot. I would say that's probably my biggest challenge that I faced during running the company so far. The second one was, I would say, a difficult decision and a choice, but it became more and more evident to me that that is the right thing to do. Was this transition from products back into saying, we'll go back into services and become an R&D organization rather than continue as a product organization. That transition during that uncertain times of what to do, which way to pursue, what are my strengths, where are my passions. Understanding that, I would say, was my second challenge, again on a personal nature. I think the third one I would point to, when we exited GE and we had this period when we lost a lot of revenue, went into a loss-making year, and then, trying to come out of that. I would say that, I found the capital soon enough that we were not, very financially distressed. But I definitely feel that during that period, we also lost some people who were doing that particular type of work that we were doing with GE and others. They felt like when we closed that part of the business, they felt like their work was undervalued, and they did not want to make the shift into the new things we were doing. And when I lost many of the engineers in that period, that too I would say is the third time, that whole transition of 1 year when I lost people and we went into loss for 1 year. That is probably a difficult period again.
Thanks a lot for spending time with us, Ganesh. Indeed, it was nice talking with you. It has given us a good insight about entrepreneurship. We learned how to execute idea from scratch, and most importantly, keep a hold at hard phases. Soliton's growth in this short duration is tremendous. We wish Soliton all the best to continue its success story and scale up in the future.